have not come up with any building plans that meet the needs that the Racing Commission has laid out for us that satisfy the budgetary constraints that we have for both of these projects. As a result of that, we've suspended construction on both sites. We have stabilized the site in Mahoney Valley for wetlands remediation purposes, and we continue to stabilize the site in Dayton. I'm sorry, we're going to mix the two together in this presentation, but we've stabilized or are in the process of stabilizing the Dayton site for environmental remediation, since I'll remind the commission members that it was a Delphi, it was a car parts manufacturing facility with a number of environmental concerns. So in both cases, we have suspended the projects, we have terminated, we have ceased the bidding process that we had undertaken as we described to this commission at our last meeting with respect to some of the early stage purchases for the construction of the facility, because as I said, we are unfortunately not able to take the existing facility and meet the expanded seating capacity that this commission has mandated as a result of the last meeting. What we'd like to do is just share with you our original methodology in terms of how we got to where we were with our original proposals, so that you can understand our view as to the state of racing in the United States in 2013 and our view as it relates to the $500 million of capital from our shareholders that we are prepared to invest in the state of Ohio, and why, quite frankly, we are constrained by the budget limitations that we've set for both these projects in attempting to meet the obligations that you've imposed on us. So real quickly, just to summarize, the proposals that you've seen before you are the Dayton facility as well as the Mahoney facility. In looking at these facilities, we start with the potential population. And in both cases, you see there 541,000 in the Dayton facility in terms of gaming age population, 25 and over, who live within 30 miles of the facility. That's the primary market that we had planned and originally programmed these facilities for when we came up with our original design. In addition to the available adult population or the potential market, we look when we size these facilities and make a determination on capital investment of what the competitive environment looks like. And as you can see on that slide, we've anticipated the relocation, which you've just approved, of the Miami Valley facility, which will be approximately 26 miles away from this location. So that market population has been adjusted for that potential, no longer potential, but now real competitor whose relocation you've just approved. The second facility is smaller in terms of the potential market and therefore certainly supports a smaller investment, 307,000 adults, and it's in a much more competitive environment with the proposed Pennsylvania facility 22 miles away, the existing Mountaineer facility in Chester, West Virginia 41 miles away, and of course Northfield, the harness facility, 51 miles away.
Mr. Snyder, may I ask you a question about the Pennsylvania facility? Is Penn Gaming still a part of that?
We continue negotiations with the holders of that license from the Harness Racing Commission.
And as I understand from what I read, that Penn Gaming would help finance this and run it?
We would, through our real estate investment trust that we are in the process of creating, would develop, own, and lease the facility and manage it on behalf of the equity owners. Yes, sir.
And it's also my understanding that the Pennsylvania law would preclude you from having an equity interest in this other than 1/3. Is that the case?
That is the case.
That's meaning for our folks on the commission, Pennsylvania, you can only own 1/3 of these operations. So you would have to have, if you took an equity position in it, you could only take 1/3 equity, correct?
That's correct. The Race Course Renewal Act of 2004 limits the ownership in Pennsylvania licensees to one facility and a 1/3 interest in others by any single equity holder.
So again, explain to me through your real estate investment trust, you would build this facility out. You would be the owners of the facility, and you would lease back to the benefit is taking a look at it. Is
Yes.
that correct? So it would be your total investment in building and owning the racetrack to be leased and facilities.
We would own the facilities, we would not own the license based on our current negotiations, that is correct.
But if you were to have a license, you could have 1/3 of it? Is that basically what it is?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Mr. Castor?
Yes, as I look at the Hollywood at Mahoning Valley Race Course there, we have the closest pari-mutuel competitors. Where would that fall in there?
Where would?
22 miles.
Yes, 22 miles
So
directly.
that is the Valley View.
That is correct.
Lawrence
And
County.
That is approximately, it's 22 miles directly west of the Lawrence County facility is where the Mahoning Valley facility would fall in Austintown. Mahoning County.
And again, a couple meetings ago, we talked about this briefly. How do you square up operating two facilities within 22 miles of one another?
Well, first,
And from a competition
it starts
point
by,
of view.
it starts by making sure the capital investment is appropriate for the competitive environment. And then it proceeds in terms of marketing by marketing the strengths and the differences of the facilities. The Pennsylvania facility, as you know, would be allowed to have table games, so it would appeal to a different market segment. The Pennsylvania facility would permit smoking inside the facility, neither of which would be available on the Ohio side. So on the Ohio side, the marketing approach would be to those who are more proximate, for whom the Mahoning Valley facility would be more convenient, and they didn't have an interest in table games nor an interest in smoking inside the facility. So it provides for different market segments.
And just for my own personal edification, I think I know the answer to this question.
Don't guess.
Rhetorical question.
Don't guess, right?
Yeah. At most of these facilities that in Pennsylvania that have both table games and slot machines, is 70% of the revenue as a result of having slot machines and 30% table games? Is that the general?
No. The general mix throughout the average facilities in Pennsylvania are more 80 to 85% slot machines and 15 to 20% table games in terms of gaming revenue. There are certain markets like Sugar House in Philadelphia because of its population base, and the Sands facility in Bethlehem because of their proximity to New York and northern New Jersey, where they run a much higher percentage of gaming revenue from table games, more to your 70-30. 30% coming from table games, 70% coming from slot machines.
So you would envision in this Valley View project that 80% of the revenue would come from slot machines?
Yes.
And yet you want to open up a place that's 22 miles from there whose only source of revenue is slot machines, or excuse me, video lottery terminals.
We'd like to. We think it's in the best interest of racing, and we're optimistic that this commission will approve it someday, yes.
I'm just trying to get that squared up. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Just a question, the Valley View project, is there a timeline on that?
The Harness Racing Commission in Pennsylvania has imposed a May 31 deadline for that applicant to submit its application to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board for the slot machine and table game license.
13.
May 31.
And
2013.
2013, yes, I'm sorry.
And this project has been in the, since beginning of time, or?
Well, the original legislation was signed by Governor Rendell in 2004. The first licenses were awarded in 2006.
At this particular location in Lawrence County?
I think it was about 2008 by the time that it was awarded. It was sometime in the late 2000s. It's certainly been a number of years.
And how many iterations of this have there been?
I believe there have been 3 ownership changes over the course of the application for the Harness Commission license. because this is, at this point in time, strictly a harness racetrack license. And that's where the condition to get an application to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board by May 31st of 2013 arises.
Any other?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
let me make sure I understand part of this. You plan to finance it, and you plan to build it, and you plan to operate it, and maybe own 1/3 or will own 1/3.
We can only own 1/3 as
I
the
understand.
maximum, to the chairman's point. We have not completed those negotiations yet.
So you may or may not own 1/3.
Correct.
And isn't it true that the horsemen just backed out on backing this project?
The existing horsemen's group that has been recognized by the licensee has withdrawn their support for the project. But that does not suggest that there would not be another horsemen's group that would be available.
There, Mr. Rhodes, there are two harness horsemen's associations in Pennsylvania. One is exclusively at the Meadows Racetrack, and the other is called the Pennsylvania Horsemen's Association, and that covers the other harness tracks